He started as an apprentice, and apex hunters couldn't face him. When he arrived at Helios Point, the frontier station at the edge of explored space, many of the workers barely noticed him. Some of the senior engineers called him the boy, though he was 19 and already technically an apprentice in xenotech maintenance. Others ignored him completely. Alex didn't mind. He had learned long ago that observation was just as valuable as action, sometimes more. Helios Point was a busy station, filled with people moving in constant motion. Technicians ran from one lab to another, carrying crates of alien alloys or delicate tools, while the communication towers hummed with signals from nearby colonies and passing ships. The station itself was like a small city floating in the void, with corridors and lifts that connected labs, living quarters, and hangars. Alex spent most of his days in a small maintenance bay, repairing small devices, charging batteries, or analyzing alien instruments that had no obvious use. He liked to work quietly, tinkering with things, trying to understand why they worked the way they did. The other apprentices often hurried to finish their tasks, trying to impress supervisors. Alex moved slowly, carefully, taking notes in a small notebook he carried in his pocket. He didn't mind the quiet. In fact, he liked it. The humming of machines, the faint smell of lubricants and ozone, it was comforting to him. Here he could think. Here he could notice the small things that others ignored. One morning, as Alex was cleaning a series of alien data nodes that had been damaged during a minor meteor storm, a voice called from the doorway. "Hey, Carter, you done with those yet?" Alex looked up. It was Rick Hayes, one of the older technicians. Tall, broad, with a permanent scowl, Rick didn't have much patience for apprentices. "Almost," Alex said, keeping his voice calm. He didn't want to draw attention, especially from Rick. The man liked to point out mistakes loudly. "Almost isn't good enough," Rick said, stepping into the bay. He scanned the nodes. "These need to be perfect. If the apex hunters ever hit this sector, you don't want to be the one who left a mistake behind." Alex nodded. He didn't mention that the apex hunters had never been anywhere near Helios Point. Most people spoke of them like a myth, a story told to make apprentices work faster. The apex hunters were known across human colonies as the deadliest alien species in space. They were large, fast, intelligent, and merciless. No human had ever faced a pack alone and survived. Alex went back to the nodes. He was careful, cleaning each panel, examining circuits, and cross-referencing the alien symbols with a database he had memorized over months. He liked patterns. Even alien symbols, which seemed random at first, had their own logic if you watched closely enough. While others saw only strange shapes, Alex saw sequences, repeated motifs, and subtle anomalies. He had noticed this before in other alien artifacts, but Rick had no patience for such observations. "You're staring too much," Rick said. "Just fix it and move on." Alex only nodded. He didn't argue. He had learned that no one noticed the quiet ones until it was too late. Later that day, Alex took a break in the observation deck. From here, he could see the black expanse of space dotted with distant stars. Small freighters moved slowly in the distance, like ants crawling across the void. He liked looking at the stars. They made him feel small, but in a good way, small but capable. As he watched, a report came through the station's comm system. The voice was urgent but calm. "All units, outer colonies report sightings of apex hunter scouts. Repeated sightings along the sector border. No engagements yet, but they are moving closer to inhabited systems." Alex's heart quickened. He had read every report about apex hunters, every encounter humans had survived, every strategy used. He knew the stories were grim. Humans often lost ships and entire settlements without warning. The apex hunters were methodical. They studied their prey. They waited for mistakes. He didn't panic. He had learned long ago that fear often clouded judgment. He took out his notebook and began to make notes. What if scouts were spotted? What patterns did the hunters follow? He started sketching maps of likely paths, noting colonies most at risk, distances between patrols, and possible escape routes. As the day went on, the tension at Helios Point grew. More staff arrived from nearby colonies to report sightings and bring supplies. The engineers and security officers began preparing defensive measures, though no one knew if the apex hunters would actually attack. They had a reputation for terror, not negotiation. Most humans assumed confrontation would end badly. Alex quietly offered suggestions to a few of the junior officers. If they follow the patrol routes we've mapped, we can use the terrain of certain moons to create choke points, he said softly. Their sensors are tuned to detect motion, but they don't scan for subtle heat changes. We can use low-energy decoys to confuse them. The officers looked at him skeptically. He was just an apprentice, but the calm certainty in his voice made them pause. "We can try," said Officer Nora Fields, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. She was one of the few who listened to Alex without dismissing him. Together, they ran simulations on the station's old tactical software. Alex showed them patterns he had noticed in the Scouts' previous attacks across other sectors. Slowly, they realized that his ideas had merit. That evening, Alex returned to the maintenance bay. Most of the station was quiet. The hum of machinery filled the air. He continued working on alien devices, but now he felt a different energy around him. He sensed that the quiet observation he had practiced for years might soon be more important than he ever imagined. As he cleaned a damaged sensor array, he noticed something unusual. A tiny pattern in the alien circuits, something almost invisible. It wasn't part of the standard design. He studied it carefully. The pattern repeated like a hidden code. He traced it with his finger and noted it in his notebook. He didn't know yet what it meant, but he had learned to trust these instincts. Sometimes the smallest detail made the difference between survival and failure. Suddenly, alarms rang across Helios Point. The station's lights flickered. Alex froze for a moment, then ran toward the nearest control hub. The reports came in fast. A small fleet of Apex Hunter scouts had entered the outer perimeter. No one knew if they intended to strike, but their presence alone sent fear through the station. Rick Hayes barked orders, but his voice trembled slightly. For the first time, Alex noticed that even the seasoned technician could be unsettled. Alex focused. He reviewed the notes he had made earlier, tracing likely scout movements, and began giving quiet instructions to a few nearby apprentices. "Move those decoys here," he said. "Reduce energy signatures there. If they scan this sector, they'll think it's empty. The sensors here recalibrate to pick up movement behind the arrays." The others followed him, unsure why, but trusting the quiet certainty in his voice. Alex didn't shout. He didn't panic. He simply worked, moving faster than most would believe possible for someone so untrained in combat. Hours passed. The Apex scouts circled the station, testing defenses. They were fast, precise, and intelligent. Many humans expected an attack at any moment. Alex watched patterns. He noticed how the scouts adjusted to human movements, how they responded to energy fluctuations, how they avoided areas that seemed dangerous. He began predicting their next moves, positioning decoys, and subtly influencing their behavior. By the end of the cycle, the scouts had left. No human had fired a shot. No one had been injured. Some officers were astonished. How had a group of dangerous apex hunters been driven away without conflict? They looked at each other nervously, unable to explain it. Alex quietly closed his notebook. He felt tired but satisfied. He knew he had learned something important. Observation, patience, and understanding patterns were more powerful than brute strength, at least for now. The apex hunters had underestimated the smallest, quietest human. Later in the sleeping quarters, Alex lay awake. The stars shone outside the small viewport. He thought about the scouts, the patterns, the subtle signs no one else had noticed. He thought about the possibility of facing apex hunters not as scouts, but as full fleets in the future. He didn't feel fear. He felt focus. He felt preparation. He realized that even as an apprentice, he could make a difference if he watched carefully, thought clearly, and acted wisely. And somewhere deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. He didn't yet understand how far this path would take him, or how many battles he would face, but for the first time, he felt that he was not as small as he had once thought. He had started as an apprentice. But the universe had already begun to notice him after the scouts left. Helios Point was on high alert. The station had never seen apex hunters this close, and the human crew was nervous. Everyone moved quickly, checking equipment, scanning sensors, and reinforcing defenses. Rick Hayes and other senior technicians barked orders, but it was clear they did not know what to do next. Alex watched quietly, thinking, analyzing, as he always did. He noticed small weaknesses in the station's defenses that no one else had seen. Officer Nora Fields asked him to join a strategy meeting. The other officers looked at him with surprise. He was still officially just an apprentice, yet they wanted his input. Alex didn't say much at first. He waited, listening to reports and complaints. The humans were worried that apex hunters could return any day with more scouts or even full hunting packs. The older officers spoke about weapons, firepower, and shields. Alex spoke last. "We can't fight them the way they expect," he said softly. "They are fast and smart. If we try to meet them head-on, we will lose. We need to change the way they see us. We need to make them think Helios Point is harder to attack than it really is. Traps, decoys, and unpredictable movement. We can use the station itself to confuse them." Some officers shook their heads. "That's dangerous," one said. "You're just an apprentice, leave strategy to us." Nora Fields held up her hand. "Listen to him. He saw patterns in their movement that we missed. He might be right." Alex nodded, and together, he and Nora began working quietly. They mapped the station's corridors, vents, and maintenance shafts, noting areas where humans could move unseen. They planned routes for patrols and small strike teams that could surprise the hunters without risking large groups. Alex suggested using the station's sensor systems to create false images of humans moving in places they were not. The computers could project heat signatures and movement patterns, tricking the apex hunters into attacking empty corridors. As they worked, Alex noticed another pattern. The apex hunters seemed to rely on rigid thinking. They expected humans to fight predictably, using brute force. They valued speed and power, but not creativity. Alex realized that human intelligence could be the greatest weapon. He began teaching a few junior apprentices small tactics, like setting traps, making decoys, and thinking ahead. At first, they laughed at him. They were used to following orders, not inventing strategies. But when Alex showed how a single decoy had fooled the scouts the night before, they began to listen. Days passed. The station became a hive of preparation. Supplies were moved, weapons checked, and patrols organized. Alex spent hours studying alien artifacts in the maintenance bay. He noticed that some devices had energy signatures that could interfere with sensors. Others could amplify signals. He began modifying equipment, making simple tools into clever devices that could help in defense. No one else understood what he was doing. They assumed he was tinkering, wasting time. Alex smiled quietly to himself. He knew better. One evening, while he was calibrating a small alien sensor, a loud crash echoed through the station. The lights flickered. Alex ran toward the source, finding a maintenance door torn open. A small scouting drone from an Apex Hunter fleet had entered the station. It moved quickly, scanning for life signs. The security team tried to engage it, but the drone was faster than anyone expected. Alex stayed calm. He analyzed its movement. It had a predictable scanning pattern. He guided a maintenance cart in front of it, confusing its sensors. The drone collided with the cart and sparked, short-circuiting. The senior officers were astonished. "How did you do that?" Rick Hayes shouted. Alex shrugged. "I watched it," he said simply. "It has patterns. Every movement can be predicted." Word spread quietly about Alex's quick thinking. Some of the crew began calling him the Quiet Mind, though he did not care for the nickname. He continued working, learning more about alien devices, studying patterns, and preparing strategies that no one else thought of. One night, Alex went to the observation deck. The stars were bright and calm. He thought about what was coming. The apex hunters were patient, relentless, and intelligent. Humans had never faced them alone. Most would say Helios Point could never survive a full attack, but Alex did not believe that. He believed in preparation, in observation, and in thinking differently. He believed that even a small human could make a difference. The next day, reports came in of another scout group approaching a nearby colony. Alex studied the maps, noting terrain features, patrols, and likely approaches. He realized that humans could use the environment, small hills, caves, and water features to hide movements and create false impressions. He suggested sending small human teams with decoys and noise generators to mislead the scouts. Nora Fields approved, assigning a few junior officers to follow his plan. Hours later, a report arrived. The scouts had been confused. They attacked areas where no humans were present, wasting energy and time. The humans had lost nothing. Alex's plan had worked. Quietly, he smiled. No one celebrated loudly, but the officers exchanged glances. The quiet apprentice was proving himself valuable. Hello's Point was tense but alive. Alex continued working, using his knowledge of alien technology to modify sensors, create decoys, and strengthen defenses. He noticed subtle signs in the scouts' behavior: hesitation, confusion, patterns in how they approach targets. He began predicting movements, adjusting tactics in real time. Humans learned from him, slowly gaining confidence that cleverness could overcome brute strength. One afternoon, a small group of workers found an injured scout that had been abandoned. It was alive but weak. Most people wanted to destroy it immediately, fearing contamination or danger. Alex stopped them. He examined the creature carefully. Its biology was fascinating. He noted movement patterns, reaction to light, and energy responses. He suggested keeping it contained for observation. Nora Fields agreed. Alex learned from it, understanding more about apex hunters' abilities, weaknesses, and behavior. Weeks passed. Alex became more than just an apprentice. He was a guide, a teacher, and a strategist, though he still wore the label of apprentice. The crew began to trust his instincts, following his advice even when it seemed unusual. They set traps, prepared decoys, and rehearsed movements in the corridors. They learned that they could outthink the apex hunters even if they could not outfight them. One evening, as Alex walked through the maintenance bay, Rick Hayes approached him. "Kid," he said, hesitating slightly, "I didn't think you had it in you. I was wrong." "You've changed the way we think about defense." Alex nodded quietly. "We all have to think differently," he said. "That's the only way we survive." Rick looked at him for a long moment, then walked away. Alex returned to his work. The station was quiet, the hum of machines filling the air. He felt calm. He felt ready. The apex hunters could come at any time, but Helios Point would not be helpless. Humans could adapt. Humans could think. Humans could survive. One night, the station sensors picked up a massive signal. A fleet of apex hunters was moving through the outer sector, larger than any patrol before. Alarms rang. Humans scrambled. Weapons were prepared. Everyone looked to the senior officers for orders. Alex moved quietly among them. He did not shout or panic. He studied the fleet's signal patterns, the spacing of ships, and the timing of their approach. He suggested maneuvers that would hide Helios Point from direct detection, using decoys and false energy signatures. The officers hesitated, but there was no better plan. They followed Alex's instructions. As the fleet moved closer, the humans watched anxiously. The apex hunters were known to strike without warning, to destroy colonies in minutes. Yet the station remained calm, prepared. Alex had turned knowledge into power, observation into defense, patience into strategy. He was still an apprentice, yet already he had changed the course of survival for hundreds of humans. The first ships arrived in orbit. Scouts moved to probe the station. Alex studied their movements, noting their speed, energy patterns, and likely targets. He directed the placement of decoys, sensors, and patrols. The scouts circled the station, confused by conflicting signals. They attacked empty corridors, wasted energy on false threats, and delayed communication with their fleet. Humans watched in awe. A small mind, an apprentice, had turned confusion into advantage. By the end of the cycle, the scouts withdrew. No human was injured. The station remained intact. Alex quietly noted every movement in his notebook, studying patterns for the future. He knew this was only the beginning. Apex hunters would return, bigger, stronger, more prepared. But humans were learning too. And he would lead the way, even if no one gave him a formal title. As he lay in his quarters that night, Alex thought about the coming battles. He knew that preparation, observation, and intelligence were the greatest weapons humans had. Brute force alone would not survive. Humans had always survived by thinking, adapting, and enduring. He felt a quiet confidence. He had started as an apprentice, small and unnoticed. Now he was already making a difference. And he knew that when the apex hunters came again, they would not be able to predict him. The following weeks passed in a tense rhythm at Helios Point. The station buzzed with activity, yet an undercurrent of fear ran through every corridor. Alex Carter continued his quiet work, observing, learning, and teaching a few trusted apprentices. He was no longer just an observer. His strategies were being tested, and now the stakes were rising. One morning, the comm system crackled with a warning. A scout party of apex hunters had been spotted near a nearby asteroid field. Their numbers were small, perhaps a dozen, but their reputation for precision and aggression made even small groups deadly. The officers panicked slightly, debating whether to engage or wait for the fleet to arrive. Alex stepped forward. "If we wait," he said calmly, "they will approach the colony. If we engage directly, we risk unnecessary losses. We can use the terrain of the asteroid field to our advantage. Small, mobile teams can guide them into traps, confuse their sensors, and control the engagement." The senior officers exchanged doubtful glances. Alex was still an apprentice, and they were experienced in combat and command. Yet something about his calm confidence made them listen. Nora Fields, always supportive of his ideas, finally said, "We'll follow your plan. You lead the strategy, Alex." Alex quickly organized a small human team. He selected 4 junior officers and 2 apprentices he trusted. Together, they equipped small shuttlecraft with sensors, decoys, and traps. Alex assigned positions based on patterns he had observed in previous scout movements. Every maneuver, every decoy, every small explosive or sensor pulse was calculated to confuse the hunters, to make them believe the humans were everywhere at once. As the shuttlecraft approached the asteroid field, Alex felt a mixture of focus and anticipation. He had never faced apex hunters in real combat, yet he was not afraid. Fear had never helped him before. He had learned that observation, planning, and adaptability were more powerful than panic. The scouts appeared suddenly, moving like shadows among the rocks. Their sleek forms cut through the darkness, sensors scanning, claws and weapons ready. Alex's team held position, invisible to the hunters at first. He watched their movement patterns carefully. The scouts were intelligent but rigid. They expected humans to attack directly or hide predictably. Alex planned to break those expectations. He triggered the first decoy, a small shuttle projecting multiple heat signatures. The hunters veered toward it, claws and weapons ready. Alex activated the second decoy, a subtle energy pulse along another path, drawing attention. Confusion spread among the scouts. They attacked empty spaces, wasted energy, and delayed communication. "They're reacting," whispered one of the junior officers. "It's working." Alex nodded but did not speak further. He observed, adapting his tactics in real time. The hunters moved faster, trying to identify the true human positions. Alex anticipated their responses, adjusting decoys, sending signals to mislead sensors, and guiding small movements of his team. The scouts were smart, but they had never encountered humans who thought this way. Every move Alex made disrupted their strategy. Suddenly, one scout split from the main group, attempting to flank the human shuttles. Alex predicted this. He activated a small trap hidden among asteroids, tiny energy nets that restrained the scout momentarily, causing it to crash into the rocks. The other scouts paused, observing. Hesitation was rare for apex hunters, and Alex noted it carefully. Their rigid thinking had created a weakness he could exploit. He instructed his team to move into positions that would create false openings, drawing the hunters deeper into the asteroid field. They followed precisely, moving silently, using the shadows and terrain. The scouts advanced, confident, but each step brought them into traps. Small explosive charges created noise and motion, sensors projected false images, and the humans struck from multiple directions without exposing themselves fully. Hours passed. The scouts, frustrated and confused, began to withdraw. Their numbers were reduced not because of strength, but because Alex had manipulated their behavior. Human ships had remained mostly safe, taking minimal risks. The operation had been a success. The human team returned to Helios Point, exhausted but proud. They began to see Alex not just as an apprentice, but as a mind that could outthink even the deadliest hunters. The following day, analysts reviewed the battle data. They noticed patterns in Alex's strategy that had never been used in human tactics before. Traditional approaches relied on overwhelming firepower or defensive walls. Alex had used deception, observation, and anticipation. His small human team had achieved what larger forces might have failed to do. Rick Hayes approached Alex quietly. "I still can't believe it," he said. "You weren't trained for combat, yet you led this perfectly. How did you know what to do?" Alex shrugged. "I watched them," he said simply. "They have patterns. Every creature, no matter how fast or strong, has predictable behavior. You just have to notice it." The success of the first encounter spread through the colonies. Reports came from other sectors about humans who had outsmarted apex hunters in small skirmishes. Alex did not take credit. He remained quiet, focused on learning more, studying alien devices, and improving strategies. He understood that confidence without preparation was useless. He preferred observation and action to recognition. Weeks later, a new threat emerged. A larger hunting pack had been detected near a mining colony several sectors away. This time, more humans were involved. The apex hunters had begun coordinating attacks, testing human defenses, and trying to eliminate key strategic points. Alex studied the maps carefully, noting terrain, energy signals, and past behavior of the hunters. He formulated a plan that relied on speed, misdirection, and intelligent use of the environment. He led a larger team, using small, fast vessels equipped with decoys and traps. The humans moved silently, striking from unexpected angles, confusing the hunters with false signals and unexpected maneuvers. Alex had learned from the previous encounter and adapted. Every trap was precise, every decoy calculated, every movement anticipating the enemy's response. The battle was intense. Hunters were faster than expected, stronger, and more aggressive, yet Alex's strategy worked. The humans inflicted minimal damage on themselves while causing confusion and loss among the hunters. The hunting pack retreated, unable to predict or control the engagement. Humans had survived and held the colony. After the battle, Alex spent hours analyzing every detail. He noted patterns in hunter behavior, weaknesses, and responses to traps. He modified equipment, improved decoys, and trained other humans in the methods he had developed. He knew that future encounters would be harder. Apex hunters were intelligent, capable of learning. He had to stay ahead, adapt faster than they could. Hello's point began to change. Humans started thinking differently. They learned to value observation, strategy, and adaptability as much as strength. Alex's quiet influence was reshaping human doctrine. Officers began consulting him regularly. He trained more apprentices, teaching them to think, anticipate, and act with precision. One evening, Alex observed the stars, thinking about the battles ahead. He knew the apex hunters would return stronger and smarter. Humans had survived small skirmishes, but a full fleet would test every skill they had. He felt no fear. He had learned that preparation, observation, and strategy were stronger than panic or brute force. Humans had survived before by thinking differently, and they would survive again. He walked through the maintenance bay, checking devices and preparing equipment. The sound of machinery was comforting, a rhythm that reminded him of his purpose. He knew the coming battles would not be easy, but he was ready to guide humans, to anticipate the hunters, and to turn intelligence into power. That night, reports came in of a new fleet moving through the outer sector. Apex hunters were coordinating, larger and more organized than before. Alarms rang and humans scrambled. Alex analyzed the data calmly. Patterns, spacing, speed, energy signatures, everything could be predicted. He began issuing instructions, positioning human teams, decoys, and traps. The fleet approached, but the humans were ready. Small skirmishes erupted, with humans striking from unexpected angles, confusing the hunters, and using the environment to their advantage. Alex's strategies were tested in real time. He adapted constantly, guiding movements, setting decoys, and predicting enemy actions. Hunters fell into traps repeatedly, frustrated and disorganized. Humans survived with minimal losses. After the engagement, officers quietly acknowledged Alex's genius. He remained an apprentice, yet his influence had grown beyond any official rank. Humans had learned to outthink their deadliest enemies, relying on observation, intelligence, and adaptability. Alex had shown them a new way to fight, a way that did not rely on strength alone. He sat quietly in the observation deck, staring at the stars. He knew apex hunters would return. The battles would grow harder, more dangerous. Yet he was not afraid. He had learned that intelligence, preparation, and careful observation were the greatest weapons humans had. He had started as an apprentice, small and unnoticed. Now, he was a strategist who could shape the survival of entire colonies. And he knew deep inside that humans had a chance. Not because of strength, not because of numbers, but because of minds that could see, think, and act differently. Alex had become the human the apex hunters could not predict. The tension in Helios Point was heavier than ever. Reports from nearby sectors indicated that apex hunters were no longer sending small scouts or testing humans with minor attacks. They were preparing something larger, more dangerous. A hunting pack, bigger than any humans had faced, was moving through the outer colonies, striking settlements and leaving destruction in its path. The fleet was organized, coordinated, and patient. Alex Carter stood in the observation deck, studying the signals. His small team of trusted apprentices and junior officers gathered around him. He had spent weeks preparing for this, analyzing patterns, creating strategies, and training humans to move differently than apex hunters expected. The stakes were higher now. A full engagement would test every lesson he had learned. "They are moving faster than predicted," said Officer Nora Fields. "We can't face them head-on, we risk everything." Alex nodded. "We won't. We'll use the terrain and the station's defenses. We will control the engagement, force them to make mistakes, and use those mistakes against them." His team listened quietly. Alex had become the mind they followed, the strategist they trusted, even though he was still officially just an apprentice. He had proven himself in smaller skirmishes, but now the hunters would test everything he had prepared. The first sign of attack came at night. Warning sirens blared across Helios Point. Sensors detected multiple ships entering the outer orbit, moving in a formation designed for rapid strikes. The apex hunters had split into groups, coordinating attacks on multiple points simultaneously. Humans scrambled, preparing defenses, moving into strategic positions and activating decoys. Alex directed teams calmly. "Deploy decoys in these sectors, shift energy signals there, move the patrol shuttles along these routes. They will follow patterns if we let them." "Stay unpredictable." Junior officers hesitated. The strategy was unconventional. Humans were used to direct attacks and shields, not manipulation of enemy behavior. Yet Alex's calm certainty inspired them to act. They followed instructions, moving silently, activating decoys, and preparing hidden traps. The first group of apex hunters reached the outer perimeter. They moved quickly, claws extended, scanning for humans. Alex observed from the observation deck, analyzing movement patterns and predicting their reactions. He triggered a series of decoys, projecting multiple heat signatures across empty corridors. The hunters hesitated, then attacked the false signals. "They're reacting," whispered one apprentice. "It's working." Alex did not respond. He focused, watching every movement, adjusting decoys and traps in real time. The hunters were fast, intelligent, and aggressive, but their thinking was rigid. They expected humans to act in predictable ways. Alex refused to allow predictability. Every move was calculated to confuse, delay, and misdirect. A second group attempted to flank the station. Alex anticipated the maneuver. He instructed human teams to reposition silently, using maintenance corridors and vents. Sensors projected false images, while small traps hidden in the environment slowed the hunters' advance. A few hunters collided with barriers, claws tangled, energy weapons misfired. Confusion spread among their ranks. "They're making mistakes," said Officer Fields. "We've never seen them hesitate like this." Alex nodded. Hesitation was the opening. Humans could exploit it. He guided his teams to target hunters who were isolated, weak, or distracted. Small, precise strikes disrupted the pack without exposing large groups. Humans moved like shadows, avoiding direct confrontation, using intelligence instead of brute force. Hours passed. The apex hunters' attacks became disorganized. They were aggressive, but uncertainty slowed them down. Their coordinated fleet was broken into smaller, ineffective groups. Alex had predicted this outcome, relying on careful observation and manipulation. Humans had survived against overwhelming odds, not through strength, but through cleverness. Yet the hunters were relentless. A larger pack approached the station's central hub, more disciplined and more dangerous. Their sensors detected decoys and traps, but they adapted quickly. Alex realized that conventional strategies alone would not be enough. He needed to create a situation where humans could strike decisively without exposing themselves to the hunter's strength. He called a quick meeting with his team. "We will use the station itself as a weapon," he said. "We know the hunters follow patterns and react predictably to energy signals. We will control the corridors, use decoys to lure them into traps, and strike where they least expect it." His team moved quickly. Energy barriers were activated in precise sequences, creating illusions of movement. False heat signatures projected humans in corridors where no one was present. Hidden turrets were brought online, aimed at areas hunters were likely to enter. The station itself became a maze, confusing and dangerous to the intruders. When the hunters entered the central hub, they were immediately disoriented. Some attacked empty spaces, wasting energy and exposing themselves. Others collided with barriers or triggered hidden turrets. Humans struck from multiple angles, precise and calculated, never revealing the full team. Hunters fell one by one, not because of superior strength, but because they had been forced into mistakes. Alex moved silently among his team, monitoring every sensor and signal. He adjusted decoys, guided movements, and predicted reactions. The hunters began to retreat, frustrated and confused. They had faced humans before, but never in a situation where every move was controlled, every pattern exploited. The victory was not complete. The Apex hunters were intelligent and capable of learning. Alex knew they would adapt, returning stronger and more cautious. Yet Helios Point had survived the first full-scale engagement under his guidance. Humans had proven that intelligence and observation could overcome even the deadliest predators. After the battle, Alex spent hours analyzing the encounter. He studied hunter behavior, noting weaknesses, hesitation points, and patterns in their decision-making. He improved decoys, modified traps, and trained humans in advanced tactics. The lessons were clear. Humans could survive not by brute force, but by using their minds, adapting constantly, and exploiting every advantage. Helios Point had changed. Humans now valued strategy, observation, and adaptability as much as weapons and shields. Alex had become a leader, not by title, but by influence. Junior officers looked to him for guidance, apprentices followed his training, and even senior technicians recognized his insight. One night, Alex returned to the observation deck. The stars were calm, but he knew danger was coming. Apex hunters were relentless, patient, and intelligent. The next encounter would be harder, more dangerous, and more demanding, yet Alex felt no fear. He had learned to trust preparation, observation, and adaptability. He knew humans could survive if they continued to think differently. As he watched, he thought about the future. Helios Point would not be safe forever, but humans had a chance. Alex had started as a quiet apprentice, unnoticed and underestimated. Now he was the mind the Apex hunters could not predict, and he knew that when the hunters returned, the battle would test everything he and his team had learned. But humans would be ready. Intelligence, preparation, and careful observation had become the greatest weapons they possessed. Alex smiled quietly. The universe was dangerous, full of predators stronger and faster than humans had ever faced. But humans had survived before, not by strength, but by thinking, adapting, and enduring. And now, under Alex Carter's guidance, they had learned to survive in a way Apex hunters could not understand. The night passed quietly, but the calm was temporary. The Apex hunters would return larger, smarter, and more aggressive. Helios Point would face its greatest test yet. Alex knew this. He had prepared for it. He was ready. Humans would survive not because of weapons, not because of numbers, but because of minds that could see, think, and act differently. And in that knowledge, Alex found confidence. The hunters could not predict him. They could not control him. He had become the human they feared without even knowing it. The quiet in Helios Point felt heavier than ever. Weeks had passed since the last engagement, but the reports were clear. Apex hunters were gathering. Not just a pack, not just scouts or small fleets, but a full hunting armada. The largest humans had ever faced. Settlements across nearby sectors had fallen. Signals from colonies told of destruction and panic. Alex Carter studied the fleet movement from the observation deck. His small team gathered around him, tense and alert. This was the moment he had been preparing for, though no one else truly understood the danger. The Apex hunters were intelligent, patient, and ruthless. They would not be tricked easily. Mistakes could cost hundreds of lives. "This is the real test," Alex said quietly. "We can't rely on small tricks alone. We need to control the battlefield, predict every movement, and force them to fight our way, not theirs." His team nodded. Over the weeks, Alex had trained humans to move differently, to think ahead, to observe and adapt. Now it was time to put everything to use. The hunters arrived in orbit, larger than any warning could have prepared them for. Sleek, deadly ships moved in formation, scanning for signs of human activity. Small strike teams descended toward Helios Point, claws and weapons ready. Humans scrambled, preparing defenses, moving patrols, and activating decoys. Alex moved among them calmly, guiding every action, watching every signal. "Decoy drones first," he instructed. "Project heat signatures along the outer ring. Activate false energy readings there. They will follow patterns if we let them." Junior officers and apprentices followed his instructions precisely. Small drones hummed as they projected multiple images, false readings, and phantom movements. Humans repositioned silently, using corridors, vents, and maintenance shafts. The hunters advanced, confident in their strength, unaware of the trap being laid. The first strike team approached a supply hangar. Alex anticipated this. He activated hidden barriers, energy pulses, and turrets, creating confusion. The hunters struck false targets, claws tangling in barriers, energy weapons misfiring. Small human teams moved in precise coordination, striking only where hunters were vulnerable. The engagement was fierce but controlled. Humans relied on intelligence, not brute force. "They're reacting strangely," whispered Officer Fields. "They hesitate, they're not attacking together." Alex nodded. Hesitation was the opening. Humans could exploit it. He guided his teams to positions that allowed ambushes, surprise strikes, and control over the battlefield. Decoys lured hunters into traps, and hidden turrets struck only when hunters were overextended. Every move was calculated. Every step was observed. The hunters had never faced humans who could anticipate and manipulate them so precisely. Hours passed. The hunters became frustrated. Their coordinated attacks broke into smaller, disorganized groups. Alex observed patterns in their mistakes, noting how they adjusted and where they overcompensated. He adapted quickly, moving humans, activating decoys, and striking at critical points. The hunters were intelligent, but humans were unpredictable, thinking beyond raw power. A large group of hunters attempted to flank the station, hoping to hit weak points. Alex predicted this. He ordered small human teams to counterflank, using hidden corridors and vents. Decoys projected multiple heat signatures, confusing the hunters further. Some collided with energy barriers, others triggered hidden traps. Humans struck from above, below, and the sides, using speed, stealth, and intelligence. One of the largest hunter leaders approached the main hub. Its sensors were sharp, its movements precise. Alex did not panic. He had anticipated this. He activated the station's central defense network, creating illusions of multiple human positions. Hidden turrets fired with precision, forcing the leader into mistakes. Humans avoided direct confrontation, striking only when the hunters were vulnerable. The battle raged for hours. Humans were tired but focused. Alex moved from team to team, adjusting strategies in real time, guiding movements, and predicting enemy reactions. The apex hunters were aggressive, intelligent, and fast, but they were forced into errors by humans who acted unpredictably, thought ahead, and used the environment as a weapon. Finally, the largest hunter leader hesitated. The humans had controlled the engagement so thoroughly that even their fastest, smartest predator could not find an advantage. It retreated, signaling others to withdraw. The fleet began to pull back, confused and frustrated. Humans had survived against the most dangerous hunters ever assembled. Silence fell over Helios Point. Alarms had stopped. Humans looked around, exhausted but alive. Alex quietly noted every movement, every error, every response. He knew the battle was won for now, but apex hunters would adapt. They were intelligent and patient. Humans had to be ready for the next engagement. Officer Fields approached Alex. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. "You've done what no human thought possible." "The hunters, they fear us now." Alex shook his head. "We didn't win because of fear," he said. "We won because we observed, adapted, and used our minds. That's what humans do best." Rick Hayes, who had doubted Alex weeks ago, approached as well. "You've changed everything," he admitted. "We can fight now, not just survive. Thanks to you, humans have a chance." Alex smiled quietly. He had no desire for praise. He had started as a quiet apprentice, unnoticed and underestimated. Now humans had survived the greatest challenge yet, not through strength, but through intelligence, preparation, and careful observation. In the days that followed, Alex trained more humans, refining tactics, teaching observation skills, and improving equipment. Helios Point became a hub of strategy, not just defense. Humans learned to think, adapt, and survive in ways apex hunters could not predict. He often walked to the observation deck at night, staring at the stars. He thought about the universe beyond, about colonies at risk, and about the hunters who would return. He felt no fear. Humans had survived worse situations before, relying on intelligence, adaptability, and endurance. The apex hunters had been challenged, and now they had to respect the cleverness of humanity. One evening, a signal came from a distant colony. Reports indicated that the hunters were avoiding certain sectors entirely, hesitant to engage humans in positions where strategic minds could control the battlefield. Humans had not only survived, they had gained a reputation the hunters feared. Alex knew this was only the beginning. Apex hunters were persistent, intelligent, and patient. They would return. Humans would have to continue thinking differently, observing carefully, and preparing constantly. But for the first time, humans were not just prey. They were a challenge, unpredictable and capable. He walked quietly through the station, checking devices and equipment. Small apprentices followed, eager to learn, inspired by his calm confidence. Alex taught them to observe, think ahead, and adapt. He explained that survival was not about strength alone, but about using intelligence and patience to turn weaknesses into advantages. The station was alive with quiet determination. Humans moved differently now. They were faster, smarter, and more careful. They understood that apex hunters could be defeated, not by fighting like them, but by thinking differently. Alex had shown them the way. One night he stood on the observation deck, staring at the stars. The universe was vast and dangerous, full of predators stronger and faster than humans had ever faced. Yet humans had survived before, not by brute force, but by using their minds. Alex had become the human the apex hunters could not predict. He smiled quietly. The battles ahead would be harder, more dangerous, but humans were ready. They had learned to observe, adapt, and act with intelligence. They had survived against the deadliest hunters ever, and they would survive again. Alex Carter, who had started as an apprentice, had changed everything. The apex hunters now feared humans, not because of strength, but because humans could think, anticipate, and survive in ways no predator had faced before. Humanity's greatest weapon had proven itself once more: intelligence, adaptability, and endurance. And as Alex watched the stars, he knew that the universe would always be dangerous. Predators would come, challenges would arise, and battles would continue. Yet humans, guided by minds like his, would endure, they would survive, they would adapt, and they would thrive no matter what the apex hunters brought against them. Helios Point stood quietly in the darkness, a testament to human ingenuity and courage. And Alex Carter, still officially an apprentice, had become the human who changed everything, the strategist the apex hunters could not face, and the leader humanity needed to survive the endless challenges of the stars. The night was calm, but the future remained uncertain. And Alex was ready,